One day, I was scrolling the YouTube front page and I discovered a video by Akira that piqued my interest. Does aim-lapse sensitivity finder actually work? Before this, I didn't even realize that aim-lapse had a feature like that, but who wouldn't be curious to try it out? So I did. I went into this not expecting much. My normal sense had been 0.27 with 800 dpi for a while, but after finishing the aim-lapse course, the program recommended a sensitivity equal to 0.48 in VALORANT. I didn't really believe it. An increase from 0.27 to 0.48 did seem a tiny bit drastic. Regardless, I tried it anyways. I don't really play aim-lapse a lot OL, but with that sense on my first try, I somehow beat my high score from before. Yeah, I don't know either. I did test out the old 0.27 sense and other varying ones and ended up with settling with 0.42 for them. It did feel nice to make quick movements with as much as a flick of a wrist. Because usually, I have a bit of a problem with being a sloth, so my aiming is a tad slow and the quick movements aren't really my thing. That was always very apparent on the range when I could barely touch their hard butts since they disappeared before I was even fully on them. Suddenly, snapping from target to target wasn't much easier since I could just do it by wrist movement while the arm didn't need to get involved much. I jumped into the range. It took a bit of getting used to, but eventually I got a high score of 14 hard butts, when usually I'd be at maybe 6 or 7 if I got lucky. After this, I went into Swift Play to test it out in an actual in-game setting. It felt very jittery, but somehow I MVP'd and won 10 in 2. Most of it was probably luck, but it felt nice to be able to move so quick and turn fast to clear corners. So I played some more games. On day 2, I started out a bit jittery. I felt like maybe the new sense was too high after all. I felt like I didn't have it under control well. As the day progressed, I started to feel more comfortable with the sense. On day 3, I decided I should play a couple comp games to get over my ranked anxiety. In these games, my aim was suffering and I think the new sense really didn't help. It was a fun time behind the day, but as the individual games progressed, I started to get more comfortable and perform better towards the end of the matches, until the next game started and I was back to square one. On the start of day 4, my aim was still pretty bad. I'm blaming it on the ranked games from the day before throwing me off still. After warming up with some unrated matches, I felt confident enough to try another ranked match, and my aim didn't completely suck for once. I actually gained 31 RR, which was the highest I've ever had, but that was gonna be one of the only actually great performances from me for a while. On day 6, I finally figured that if I want to do better on the sensitivity, I will actually have to put some work into aim training to get comfortable, instead of going for the approach of improving by playing. So I spent some time in the range doing aim training while waiting for pizza. I also once again got reminded that a fully white crosshair without outlines is a bit hard to see in the range. While that was happening, I switched to something closer to my old sense, 0.32, and I didn't even do that much worse. In fact, it was easy to not have choppy movement. At this point, I was just confused. I just switched out of curiosity to see how different it would be, but that it actually felt better in some aspects just left me confused. I didn't really know if switching sense again was even something worth going for at this point, or if it would just be better to stick with what I had before to get more comfortable. Each sense had an advantage. With a quick sense, movement and clearing corners felt so effortless and enjoyable to do, but small corrections were choppy and difficult, especially when nervous or stressed, which I was a bit. While at a lower sense, doing small corrections wasn't an issue, but I was a bit of a sloth. Maybe I just had to find the right compromise, something that didn't make it too choppy but something that also felt quick enough for my liking. I've also discovered that I don't really seem to have muscle memory for specific sensitivities. Sure, eventually a bit, but I can relatively quickly switch up. I guess that's why I stir my crosshair way too much, and when I turn it off, I don't hit any shots at all because my crosshair and eyes are what makes me hit the target, not my muscle memory of knowing my sense so well. And unless that changed, I would always be needing a quite visible crosshair. With some testing in the range, I chose a sensitivity of 0.36 for now. It felt quick enough to not be too much effort, but also slow enough to not make my aim all jittery, so I guess it was time to get used to it for a bit, with more aim training. I decided I'd be mostly staying away from the hard butts because they were way too fast for me, and not actually helping me align my sensitivity better. They just tested how good I was at quick flicks, while medium butts actually taught me the arm movement. I ended up getting a high score of 28 on medium, and I think I could have gotten 30 if I didn't get stressed about getting close. I also noticed that when I don't think much about what I'm doing fine and I hit shots that I don't think would have normally hit. So the biggest factor for my aim had been the mental aspect after all, and for bigger improvements, I needed to get over that. So I spent a few days just spamming comp games. They didn't go great, and I performed pretty meh, but that probably was good because it got me in these uncomfortable situations where I had a chance to get over them a bit. I'm not fully there yet, but I've definitely gotten much more chill about playing ranked, and that led to me performing a bit more on my normal level. I feel like 0.36 is a good middle ground for me, and I'm relatively comfortable with that sensitivity. While I didn't completely stick with the 0.42 cents all the way, I still spent enough time with it to figure out what I personally liked and valued. Saying that does make me want to increase it gradually though, maybe first from 0.36 to 0.365 and then to 0.37, and hopefully all the way up to at least 0.4. I really like the 0.42 sensitivity, but I felt like my hands weren't ready yet and too jittery to make small adjustments, so I'm hoping that by increasing it slowly, I will work my way up there. As a conclusion, I think the sensitivity itself isn't as much a factor for me as my mental aspect is in regards to how I perform. If I'm stressed or pressured, I just won't do well and I needed to get over that. Through this experiment, however, I found out what sensitivities I liked and what high versus low did for me.